Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be changing out the coolant on the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro. So if it's time for you to change out your coolant, stick around. Hey everybody, before you get started, make sure you have all the tools that you're going to need and appropriate protective equipment. I have some safety glasses and some nitrile gloves, and also have Allen wrenches so we can open up the plastics around the radiator. We also have distilled water for the coolant flush and our new coolant. I also have a pair of cable hose clamp pliers. These allow me to get into places where regular hose clamp pliers might not be as easy to use. So let's get started. We're going to need to access hoses that are behind the skid plate, so we'll go ahead and take that off. We're also going to need to remove some of the plastics in order to get to the fill cap and the reservoir. Next thing we'll do is we'll open the cap. Do not do this on a hot engine. And this will allow the system to get air at the top so you can then finish draining it down at the bottom. We're going to go ahead and start draining the system. We'll start with removing the clamp on the lower left side. That is dirty. Look at how dirty that is. I don't think it's supposed to be that color, but I'm way overdue. About 3 years. I've had this bike and I have not had to add coolant, and I probably should have changed it a long time ago. So glad we're doing it today. Okay, now we're going to move over to the heat exchanger and remove these hoses and allow the system to drain. Alright, so these were a little tough to get off. I had to kind of use like a screwdriver sort of thing in order to loosen them up and get them off and let the system drain. What we're going to do now is put the hose clamps back on, and we're going to run some distilled water through it to flush out the system. After the initial draining of the system, you can see we got them back on here on the heat exchanger also, and the clamps reinstalled. And now we're going to slowly fill the system with distilled water, and that way when we run the engine it'll try to push out more of the contaminants and old coolant before we refill it. We may do this a couple of times depending on how dirty the water comes out. Each bike's going to be different. I haven't changed my coolant in, well, since ever, and I've had the bike over 3 years, so it's long overdue, and yours may not be as dirty as mine, but I'll try to be better about changing mine from here on out, because now I see how dirty it's gotten. It's kind of scary. So definitely something I should be keeping up with better. Well, part of the instructions is after you fill the system is to lean the bike each direction, try to expel some of the air. we're going to start it up and run it for 20 to 30 seconds to try to expel more of the air, and then we'll top it off. And then because I'm flushing the system with distilled water, we're going to go through the draining process again, and then we'll hook up the hoses, and then we'll top it off with actual coolant. Okay, so now that we have finished flushing the system, we put the hoses back on, the clamps are in place, and we filled the system with coolant. And after you fill it the first time, you're supposed to lean the bike all the way to the right and then all the way to the left. And they say repeat is necessary, although I'm not sure how you would know whether or not it is. Top off the system one more time, and then we're going to run the bike for 20 to 30 seconds, giving a little bit of throttle to try to work out some of the air bubbles. Then we're going to stop the bike, and we're going to let it cool down. Then we're going to check the coolant level again, top it off, and then the next time we run it, we're going to let the engine come up to temperature until the fans kick on. Once the fans kick on, we'll shut the bike off, and then we'll let the bike cool all the way down, and we'll check the fluid level and make sure that we have our coolant level is somewhere between the min and max on the overflow reservoir. And then we'll be done. So the engine's been running a couple of minutes at least, probably more like 5 minutes. I've been waiting for these fans to kick on. As you can see, the temperature gauge is holding steady at like 4.5, and it's just been idling here. I decided to put the engine in gear, the transmission, to see if I can get the heat up enough for the fans to kick on. Can't really see it, but these fans are not kicking on, but the heat has not gotten to the point. Oh, there we go. There's 5 on the thermostat. Finally got 5 bars on the thermostat sitting here idling. Still waiting for the fans to kick on. I don't know if you can see in there, but yeah, I guess you can. That's where I started at, with the fluid at the minimum line, knowing that as it heats up, it's going to push out some air and it'll expand a little bit. But I'm really impressed that it's running so cool, the fans aren't even kicking on. That's crazy. You see we're up to 5 bars there. Also, while this thing is running, you want to be checking for leaks. I'm not seeing any leaks on the hoses that we moved. That's a good sign. Oh, okay, the fan's finally kicked on. All right. So, we finally got the coolant in there, and we've warmed it up until the fans kicked on, just like the manual says to do. So we're going to shut it down, and then we'll check the fluid in the overflow reservoir, make sure that we've got enough between the min and max, and then we're going to let it cool down. Another thing you want to do is after it cools down, make sure to check your reservoir again, because as the system cools down, it pulls more of the coolant into the system from the reservoir. And so you want to make sure you check that after it cools down, and make sure you're right between that min and max line. I think that's it for this job. It's a little messy, long overdue, But I'm glad we did it, and I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to try to answer them down in the comments.